In 2010, the U.S. government tried to launch a secretive version of Twitter specifically for Cuba. It was called Zuneo, which is slang for a Cuban hummingbird's tweet. So it was a, cute little name they threw on it there. Now, why did they do this? Why did they even bother? Quote, documents show that the U.S. government planned to build a subscriber base through non-controversial content, news, messages on soccer, music, and hurricane updates. And later, when the network reached a critical mass of subscribers, perhaps hundreds of thousands, operators would introduce political content aimed at inspiring Cubans to organize smart mobs, mass gatherings called at a moment's notice that might trigger a Cuban spring. So do you understand what they're saying there? The U.S. government was trying to overthrow the Cuban government by funding a secretive Twitter, which would cause an uprising and make people, overthrow the establishment. To tell you how goofy this idea is, there's no words that are strong enough to say how silly this idea is. And the amount of money that we probably spent on this thing, it's not mentioned in the article because I don't think they know. But, I'd imagine it's at least hundreds of millions, if not billions, because we had to pay people off, cut deals with different telecom companies, set up front companies that are middlemen in like the Cayman Islands and other places, hide the source of funding, pay for an actual fake company, stage concerts and ways to make it popular and make it blow up, where it would be underground, but everybody spreads the words at these like ridiculous concerts that they throw. So how did it go? How did this end up? Well, you're not going to be surprised to learn that only 40,000 people used it at its height. All right, look, man. SecularTalk, the YouTube channel, we have, a little over 26,000 subscribers right now? And I love you guys to death, don't get me wrong, you guys are fantastic. But the idea that we could get together and overthrow even a tiny state, like, hey guys, all right, let's all meet up and try to overthrow Vermont. It wouldn't happen. But their idea was create this Twitter, right? Create this underground Twitter, get a couple 100,000 people, and then they'll overthrow the government. Like, they're just huge leaps of logic. Like, build the Twitter, cut to, Castro's gone. But what do you mean? What about all the middle details? What are you talking about? How's this going to work? Do you have inside sources? Are these people going to be armed, or are they going to do it peacefully? Or are you sure that there's enough, civil unrest to even muster this, no matter how many people you get, even if there's 2 million people that you get to sign up and use the service? It is a profoundly silly idea. At its height, it only had 40,000 users. There wasn't even the hint that it was ever going to work, even at its height. And the idea was, well, in some places in the Middle East, the Arab Spring, they successfully overthrew it, and we could just repeat that in this other place. But the idea is that in the Middle East, it was grassroots anger. Now, I'm not saying that the government of Cuba is overwhelmingly popular with its people, but is it as unpopular as Egypt was, for example, where you had a fucking dictator who ruled for so long that repressed even the religion of the majority of the people who lived in Egypt? They didn't even allow the Muslim Brotherhood to exist. It's just a ridiculous notion, and it you know what it sounds like to me? And this is why it's such an interesting story, is that it sounds like a plan that a bunch of idiots, like a bunch of teenagers who are high in their basement, could hatch up and like, hey, bro, what if we create a secret Twitter and then try to overthrow the Cuban government? Oh, bro, it's probably a great idea, right? All right, let's try to do it. And then you actually fucking waste taxpayer money doing it. And then I haven't even gotten to another part of the story, which is insane, which is that Congress wasn't even overseeing it. They weren't even allowed in the process. It was just run by a specific federal agency. It was run through Washington, through the executive branch, through what's called USAID, which is like the United States Agency on International Development, which is like that That fucking federal agency shouldn't even exist in the first place. Like, what are you talking about? Why should there be a specific federal government agency for international development? What the fuck do you have to do with the international development of, Bangladesh or some shit? That's none of our fucking business. But they're trying to overthrow a government without even letting Congress know. Like, okay, guys, you want to oversee how we're doing this to make sure we're not wasting taxpayer dollars or make sure we're not violating international law or the U.S. Constitution or our own laws? They just fucking went right by them. Man, to say our government is out of control is the understatement of the century. I mean, look, you guys know me. I'm considered this, big-time progressive, this far left-winger in America. I'm really not. I'm an international centrist. But the fact that I get angry about wasteful spending when I read shit like that. This is the most wasteful spending I could imagine. Could you imagine polling the American people? Hey guys, do you think we should spend possibly $1 billion to try to overthrow the Cuban government by creating a secret form of Twitter and then getting 40,000 subscribers at its maximum height? People be like, what the fuck are you saying, dipshit? What are you saying? Are you insane? That's what we're going to spend our money on. We got fucking kids here. The food stamp cut happened. People are starving. We have poverty increasing. A war on the middle class. Medical bills is the number one cause of bankruptcy. I mean, we can go on and on. The Medicaid expansion didn't happen in all the states, so we have 17,000 people that are going to die as a result of that. Like, so many substantive problems that affect everybody's life. But they jump right to, well, no, fuck that. Don't worry about that. Let's try to create a secret Twitter and then overthrow the Cuban government. Why? Look, even whether you like Cuba, don't like Cuba, or you're neutral on the issue of the Cuban government, isn't that irrelevant? Isn't the Cuban government, it's just not our business, Like, look, do I agree with all their policies? Fuck no. Of course not. But does that mean I want to overthrow the government? No, it's none of my business. Just like, do I agree with the Saudi Arabian government? I couldn't disagree with them more on almost every single issue, but yet we do business with them all the time. We do business with Saudi Arabia. They don't let women drive. They still stone people to death. Women have no rights. Okay, it's basically a Sharia state, but we do business with them all the time. But this idea that, well, the Cuban government, they're horrible, they're terrible to their people, so we need to overthrow them. But by any objective measure, the Saudi Arabian government is worse, but you let them get away with whatever the fuck they want to do, because they're our buddies and we get oil from them. In Burma or Myanmar, the dictatorship, military junta, we do business with them all the time. Brutally repressive, kills their population. We're like, no, they're our friends, it's cool, don't worry about them, it's fine, no problem, Like, let's try to undermine the Cuban government. On a list of governments that do fucked up shit, Cuba's not even in the top 10. Sure, they're fucked up, but they're not even in the top 10. But we're spending taxpayer dollars to create a secret Twitter to overthrow them. I mean, can you tell that I'm pissed off about this?